Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zack, and today I am driving a 1967 Imperial Crown Hardtop. Up front is a 7.2 liter V8, and down below is a 3-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this Imperial Crown Hardtop for two reasons. First of all, Imperial is a brand that no longer exists. It was a subsidiary of Chrysler. However, it was actually the top of the line Chrysler. So when you had more money than what Chrysler could offer you, you went and bought an Imperial. This was supposed to be their Cadillac and Lincoln competitor. The second reason is the fact that I love driving 60s cars. I think this is one of the most appealing ones that I've driven, and I'm excited to share all of that with you here today. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But let's get back to that 440 big block under the hood. Well, I always say displacement in liters in my videos just for modern comparison's sake, but this was known as the 440. This was the only engine available in this era of Imperial. However, it is a good one because this is pre-emissions crisis. So it's a little bit punchier than what you would have seen in the early 70s, where they were still using the 440, but it was a 440 with its nards cut off. This is the big boy. This is the real one, and I like that a lot. Like I said, paired to it is a 3-speed automatic. It is a torque flight automatic, and again, nothing too crazy. It's the only available option here for the Imperial Crown Hardtop, and it does the job, no complaints. Last but not least, of course, the Imperial is rear-wheel drive, although in this era, we started to see vehicles like the Oldsmobile Tornados and some of the Cadillacs switch to front wheel. This maintains its rear wheel. How does it feel to drive the Imperial Crown Hardtop? Well, as you might expect, it is really floaty, really boaty, and very, very comfortable. Now, the seats play a large part of that story. However, the suspension is great. Now, for 1967, this is actually the first year of this body style, they actually switched from a body-on-frame to a unibody design. So it was part of Chrysler's somewhat downsizing of the vehicle. This was now on the C-body platform, which was shared with other Chryslers, where it had its own bespoke platform for 1966 and before. But it floats down the road. Even today, after so many years of sitting, it floats down the road, so much so that this might be the closest I've ever come to getting seasick on land, because you're just going with the road and you hit a bump and you rebound for several blocks afterwards. But that's the joy of these vehicles. They're low and slow vehicles. They take their time, and it's an enjoyable experience at that. Visibility is great, really thin A-pillars. And in the very 1960s style, the steering is incredibly light, almost too light, very over-boosted. The steering wheel is thin, so overall, it's very, very easy to control. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I get a bunch of gauges. Off to the left is the temperature, alternator, oil pressure, and gas gauge. We get our speedometer in the center, a clock off to the right, and of course our gear select down below. The steering wheel, as I mentioned, is nice and thin. It has a really cool Imperial badge in the center, and it has the signature 60s horn ring down at the bottom. That still works. We have switches for the lights, panel lights, washers, wipers, and rear air. And moving on to the door, we have our mirror adjustments, crank for the venting window, real wood accenting along with the front and rear power windows, a cigarette lighter, can't forget that, window locks, and our latch get in and out, along with some really nice Imperial badging. Moving into the center, we have our heat adjustments. Of the nearly 17,000 Imperials that were sold in 1967 alone, 863 of them did not have air conditioning, and this is one of them. This car, as nice and as luxurious as it is, did not have air conditioning for 1967. It was an option, but it was not checked for this particular car. Down below, we do have a hidden radio, and there's two really cool features about this radio. First of all is the fact that when you switch between AM and FM, it actually switches the numbers that you'll see. So I thought this was really cool and kind of a low-tech, high-tech sort of thing. The other cool thing about the radio is actually down on the floor. So on the floor, we have this button for the high beams. High beam switches for cars, the brights, used to be down on the floor. That's pretty traditional for the era. However, there's a second button that actually tunes the radio. You click this with your foot and it will change station. This was sort of a safety feature, so you didn't take your hands off the steering wheel to try to change the radio. Now, this didn't stick around for long just because people would mix it up with the high beams and it just wasn't that practical, but very, very cool to see. Off to the left of that, we do have a hidden ashtray, because you can never have enough ashtrays in a 60s vehicle. And then in the glove box, this is actually where you'll find your hazard switch. Kind of interesting to see here. Now, we don't have any cup holders, so it fails the big friggin' bottle test, but I truly couldn't care less. And then we have the seats. Now, the seats actually are described in the brochure, which we'll talk about later on, as sofas. That's literally how Imperial themselves describe them. You could get full leather. This is leather and cloth mixed. I love the designs of them. They are exceedingly comfortable. They are triple layered. So overall, I mean, it's just the comfiest thing you've ever sat in. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats. So let's go do a back seat review. All right, so we're in the back of the 1967 Imperial Crown hardtop. And a couple of things to note. First of all, I do have an ashtray built into the door. Of course, gotta have that along with the ashtray. Over here, funny enough, on the other side, we actually have a switch for the reading light over my shoulder. However, the switch is only on the passenger side, but the lights are on both sides. So only the other passenger gets to control it, which is kind of interesting. But these seats are just so comfortable. My knees aren't hitting the seat in front of me. My head's not hitting the ceiling. Oh, man. I could really just sleep back here. I won't. I have a job to do. But man, I could just pass out. I could pass away back here. I also won't do that, because then I can't drive any more cars. That's the only thing keeping me alive. Otherwise, that's really morbid. It's true. Otherwise, cars. I love it back here. And we do get lap belts. However, the center lap belt was actually an option, which this car has, but very, very interesting that belts were even an option. Shoulder belts were an option. There are no shoulder belts for anyone in the car, but you could have gotten them in 67. They would later become required by the end of the 60s, so kind of a weird transitional era. I love this back seat. If I spend any more time back here, I will fall asleep, and then this video will never get made. So if you're seeing this video, that means I actually woke up, finished the video, drove home, and edited the video. So that's positive. But if you're not seeing it, that means I passed out back here. Let's talk about the trunk. All right, around the back of the Imperial Crown hardtop, we do have our circle key here, and you put the threads upward for Chrysler products. Kind of interesting. Once we are back here, obviously it is an absolutely ginormous rear trunk space, and I love it. The owner has left some certain artifacts that were found with the vehicle that has all these different maps and whatnot. There you go, Illinois. This is a 72 to 73 Wisconsin map. Love this. This is a new in the package lens. The old packaging and the old textile, fancy ketchup, an old ketchup packet, Chrysler parts here with the original receipt. Mopar tune-up kit, love to see that. And then the owner put this stuff together. So this is the original brochure for the Imperial. And a couple of things to note, I'll flip through here, but what's really cool is this. This is a really rare option only for the coupes that would actually have a table and you could swivel the front chair around and or play chess, I guess, and do all of that. When people talk about these cars, they often bring that up, although that was a very rare option. I'll flip through the rest of it here. Just so much good stuff like that. Oh, they're on their own prom date or something like that. You know, the chair does recline. Only I don't know why I panned up like you would be able to see it. The passenger seat reclines, but the driver's seat does not. Got to be safe and, drive the car while you're smoking your 18 cigarettes. Imperial, all this stuff. I mean, these are all different features. Automatic headlights were an option. You could see the AC vent over here where it's blocked off in this particular car. Some awesome, awesome diagrams. Love to see that. And then the owner put this together, and this is about this specific car, originally priced at $6,444, adjusted for inflation is about $62,000. So very, very interesting. The base price was $5,836. These are the options the car has. These are the options the car is missing. So very, very interesting there. We have some old build stuff. And then these are pictures of the car when it was in the barn that we'll talk about a little bit later on. So very, very cool. That is all about this particular car, but I love to see that in this giant, giant trunk. Now we got to talk about the looks, and I am swooning over the look of this Imperial Crown Hardtop. Couple of things to note. First of all, this very much is the jetliner era, the 1960s, the fuselage era. I love the unbroken body line going all the way down the vehicle. I think it looks really, really good. And I love the center sort of jet at the back. It's actually the fuel filler cap, but it looks like this would be a turbine for some type of spaceship. And I absolutely love seeing that. Overall, the design, the look of this car is great. And it was actually designed by the same person that designed the 1960 Lincoln Continental. So you could see those sorts of features bleeding through here to his Imperial endeavors. However, the other thing I wanted to note about the exterior is the fact that this is the hardtop and not the sedan. The sedan had a pillar, or essentially had a B-pillar, where this does not. You can see when the windows are down, there's no B-pillar, which is absolutely magical. I loved when cars used to do this back in the 60s and 70s. And so this is an Imperial Crown Hardtop, not the sedan. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving the Imperial Crown Hardtop? Well, this has been such a lovely, lovely experience. The size of it, the look of it, the smell in here feels mid-century modern. If you've ever walked around an antique store, that is what this vehicle smells like. I love seeing that. And this car itself has a very, very interesting story. It was purchased new in 1967 and driven until 1975, less than 10 years of its life, where it was then parked in a barn, and it would not move again until 2021. I'll show some pictures here. It was actually on the second floor of a barn, so it had to be removed with a giant industrial forklift. It was then fixed up and sold to my friend Tom, who currently owns it. I love that resurrection story. This is a legitimate barn find, but also a barn find on the second floor. You don't often see that. So it's really cool to be driving something that was basically doomed for 40 or 50 years, and now back on the road, seeing the sunshine and viewed by people once again, where it was previously hushed away up in a corner. The other thing I wanted to talk about is Imperial itself. This was a division of Chrysler that was the bigger, nicer vehicle. This was above the New Yorker, if you could believe that. And Imperial did really, really well in the 1950s. They were built in their own factories, they were built to their own specifications, and they were the creme de la creme and the peak of what the Chrysler Automotive Company could do. But into the 60s, this era, they started to lose market share to Cadillac and Lincoln. And unfortunately, the poundings kept coming. This is another signature of what slowly happened to Imperial, where they were originally built on their own assembly line in their own factories. Well, this one, they made the small concession of, yeah, we'll share the C-body platform with Chryslers and the Imperial. But that's it. Everything else is going to be bespoke. Different interiors, big engines, things like that. As we moved into the 1970s, we saw more and more and more consolidation until Imperial was no more by 1984. We saw the Imperial name come back and was used with several automobiles, but Imperial as an automaker never made its return. It just couldn't sell more than the equivalent Cadillac or Lincoln. And maybe Cadillac is sexier. Maybe Lincoln was more dignified. I mean, that's what the presidents were riding in. And so the Imperial got kind of left in the dust by no major fault of its own, at least from where I'm sitting. Maybe there's an underlying condition that I'm unaware of, but from where I'm sitting, having driven other similar luxury cars of the era, there's nothing that jumps out to me that says, oh, it failed because of this, or it failed because of that. Maybe the fact that they were even available without air conditioning tarnished their name. Maybe the lack of giant tail fins wasn't great. Maybe it came off as a cheaper alternative to the Continental, and the Continental, well, you wanted that more. I don't know. I unfortunately don't know that portion of this car's story. But what I can tell you is that I'm very happy to be behind the wheel. I'm very privileged to be behind the wheel of a piece of automotive history, and it is now my duty to share with you and to share with the rest of the world what a 1967 Imperial Crown hardtop was. Can't imagine a whole lot are left, but this one is. And I'm so thankful that it was able to drive and see the sunshine for another era. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Tom for letting me borrow his Imperial Crown hardtop for today's video. Tom is absolutely wonderful. I've reviewed several of his vehicles well over the years, including his lovely Plymouth Belvedere, the car I learned how to drive on the tree with. He's absolutely wonderful, and I appreciate him for sharing this car with me so I can share it with you. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.